Alright, hello class, and welcome back to our discussion of Hollow Knight. So, if you remember from last class, what we did in our last playthrough was we continued our journey through the Forgotten Crossroads. We made our way to the center and fought a boss known as the False Knight. And we had a discussion about his design and his mechanics as an introductory boss. And after defeating him, we gained access to the small area known as the Ancestral Mound. So, taking a look around with the Ancestral Mound, there are a lot of signs of danger. And a lot is an understatement. If we're taking a look around, we can clearly see that there are skulls everywhere. And, I mean, maybe even less of skulls and more, like, masks? And they oddly kind of look like our character. They look like various types of bugs, and they look like various types of, like, our face. And, you know, whenever you're designing an area, and you are designing it filled with the corpses and bones of fallen, in this case, bugs, it sort of signals that you're not going to have a good time, that this is a dangerous area, that this is almost like a burial grounds. And it says, I mean, the area is called the Ancestral Mound, so it makes sense that there would be lots of things buried here. But the fact that there is so many, and we are literally walking on skulls and faces, is it's a little disturbing, and I think that we're supposed to be disturbed. And on top of that, we are also faced with this NPC. So, before even talking to him, I just want to take a look at his design here. So, when we look at him, so let's look at the physical descriptions first. So, he is entirely enshrouded in black. So he is completely black, with white glowing eyes, what looks to be like a snail shell on his head. Whoops, did not mean to talk to him. That's fine. He's wearing a necklace of skulls and masks, and if you take notice, the skulls or the masks that are around his neck are the exact same sprite as the masks on our health bar. So to say that he looks a little shady would be an understatement. He's literally carrying around a staff with a skull on it, with a necklace filled with more masks and skulls that look like our health bar. To me, he gives off some serious vibes of danger. And then before we get into the dialogue, I just want to bring up an important note. We talked about what happens when our character, the knight, dies. His shell cracks, and a shade is left behind. And if you remember the colors of that shade is completely black, with white glowing eyes. And here we see a NPC who is entirely black and has white colored eyes. So, without knowing much about the character, there at least are some sort of there's an aesthetic connection between our two characters. What they are, we don't know the actual like story or like mechanic connections between these two characters, but aesthetically, this character is as if he were us without the shell. At the very least, that's how it looks like. That black, completely darkened physique with white glowing eyes is exactly the type of being that is inside our shell. And I think that while there isn't much to talk about story-wise, thematically and aesthetically, I think it's important to point out, because he is us, except he's just showing that darker inside, whereas we're hiding it within a shell. So, aptly named because of the shell we talked about, this appears to be the snail shaman. Aho! Who is that creeping out of the darkness? My, you're looking grim. A strange, empty face and a wicked-looking weapon. Something important has drawn you down into Hollownep's corpse, but I won't ask what. Perhaps the reason you found me is because you need my help. Now, this is interesting, because the snail shaman is saying that something important has drawn us down here. One of the things that we have been talking about is how the game has acted and sort of, reinforced that it's a Metroidvania, in that, there are characters who are saying, you have to explore, you have to go through this area, there's treasures to be found, there's beauty to be found. And those are all reasons for exploring, but we never really asked the question of, well, why are we exploring? Treasures and items and all that are reasons to explore, but what is the reason for, exploring itself? Like, why is the character coming down here? Why are we even here? We're told that this whole land is a dead land. He's saying that this is Hollownest's corpse. It's not even a ruined kingdom, it's a dead kingdom, according to him. And he's saying that, well, something has drawn you here, and we've never really asked the question, why are we here? So it's something to just point out that the shaman seems to think that we're down here for a reason. He didn't say, if you notice, just to point out the discrepancy here, he's not saying something has drawn you down to come to him. He's saying something has caused you to come down into Hollownest. There is a reason you dropped into the well. Then he goes on to say that maybe you need my help. Now, if you remember, we have a total of 4 different areas that are blocked off to us right now. So, we are in need of some help. There's the enemy that requires range, that there's 2 areas, I believe, that require either a double jump or a dash. And then there's one where we need to break the ground beneath us. So it looks like here, if he's saying that he might be able to provide us some help, that maybe this is the point where we'll actually get something to progress. Say no more, friend. I'm going to give you a gift. A nasty little spell of my own creation. It's perfect for a little one like you. Oh ho ho. I'd like to point out that he's calling it a nasty little spell. Because he's like, I'm going to give you a gift, and it's a nasty spell. Like, what does that mean? And now we see what we talked about several times, both when we talked about Super Mario Brothers and when we talked about things like the geonodes. You know, here is an object that is not really moving, it's not threatening us, and it's like glowing and vibrating, so it's kind of like, it's non-threatening, so we should go up and look at it. Don't be afraid, have faith. That spell belongs to you now, all you need to do is take it. Oh ho ho, you won't be going much further without it, I promise you. So here, first off, we're getting more of a reinforcement that this guy is kind of creepy. And I don't want to trust him, but the game is telling us here through dialogue that we're going to need this spell in order to progress. We won't be able, in his words, we will not go much farther without it. So, against all better judgment, we shall grab it. Oop, we just fell to the ground. Consumed the vengeful spirit. Tap B to unleash the spirit. Spells will deplete soul, replenish soul by striking enemies. So it looks here, if I understand this correctly, that this is a ranged spell. Awesome. So now, if you remember, one of the obstacles that we were facing was that there is an enemy guarding a path to a forest-like area, and we can't attack him up close. But with this spell, it looks like we'll finally be able to take him on. So it looks like we'll be able to advance to the forest area next. But, as you can see, there's a door here, and we can't leave just yet. But we can talk to our friend the shaman, who has apparently trapped us in here. So, let's see what's going on here. Oh, you've awoken at last. I apologize. Perhaps I should have warned you about the power of that spell. I was watching over you as you slept, but seemed to have slipped away myself. Oh ho ho ho. Now we're awake, I was wondering whether you could do me a small favor. Not as a repayment for my gift, of course, simply because we're now friends. You see, a horrid great beast has made its home in the heart of this temple. Such disrespect. I would be quite grateful if you were to venture deeper in and slay it for me. It's hardly a creature, but with your new power, you're more than a match for it. Good luck with this small favor, my friend. Oh ho ho. What is it? Are you wondering about this gate between us? Oh ho ho. It's a curious thing, but this door will not open until you have slain that creature lying in the heart of the temple. Don't worry about it. I'm sure the spirits of my ancestors will be watching over you. So, I think he's being a little cheeky with us. He trapped us in here because he wants the thing in his temple dead. But he gave us the power to actually slay it, and this will benefit us. So, let's think about this now. We are given a spell, and he tells us now that we have this spell, we will be able to defeat the creature easily. So, what would be the point of trapping us in here? Why would the developers trap us in here? They gave us a spell, now we should be able to progress to the next area. Why would they trap us in here and force us to defeat the creature? Well, I would think that the answer is a little obvious. This is another tutorial, without explicitly being told as a tutorial. With this power, we're going to defeat the creature. Maybe this creature is either the same creature or a creature that follows the same rules as the creature we encountered in the forest area, where we're not going to be able to defeat it without the ranged attack. So here the game is telling us we want you to progress, but we want to teach you how to use the projectile. So we're going to give you the spell, and then we're going to trap you in the area. We're going to trap you within this next mini level and force you to learn how to use it. For new players, I believe that this is kind of a good thing, because it means that they won't get this new power and then be confused on how to use it. If you ever wanted to replay the game, I think this would kind of be seen as tedious because you would already know. But again, we're always looking at this from a new player perspective. So in terms of a new player, I think that this is really helpful. So that's the theory, so let's try and put it to the test. So it looks like you press B, it shoots out a beam, and it will defeat enemies, and it looks like it will also break objects. That's why they had the enemy and this barricade placed right here, to show us that when the tutorial button says press B to shoot it, you hit it, it defeats the enemy, and it also breaks an object. So it tells us multiple different things, that we may be needing this item to not only defeat enemies from range, but maybe to break objects at a range. Now, this spell does require soul. So we can't just spam it willy-nilly. We have to make sure that we're saving up soul in order to use it. So rather than spamming the spell to defeat enemies, I'm going to hold on to it and use the nail to collect more souls, so that way we can use it when we need it. And if you notice, took a hit. Those are mini versions of the big enemy that we were trapped behind in the forest. So if I had to take a guess, it's showing us and giving us some warning that the enemy we're going to be facing might be the same one found in the forest, just because these appear to be baby versions of that creature. I'm taking a lot of damage. Must be off my game today. So yeah, see, I had to use all that soul to heal, and now I can't use my spell. So this is important that we save what we can here. So here we have two different pathways. I'm going to come over here, and here we have another one of these soul towers, I would say, because I guess the game wants you to be able to use the spell, and they want to make sure that you have access to extra soul. So here, in case you took a bunch of damage like I did, you would have the ability to come over here and pick up some extra soul. Some more of these roly enemies. Some roly-polies. And it looks like here we have not only some money, but we have some lifeblood. The blue goop. Now, I just want to point out the strategic placement of these things. So, if for any gamers who have played a lot of games, right? You know that when the game is providing you resources, it usually means it's trying to give you resources because there's an encounter coming up. So, like a boss fight or something to that effect. So, the soul tower will provide us with extra soul when we need it. So we can either heal or charge up soul to use our spell. The lifeblood here gives us an extra 2 things of health. So this is helping prepare us because, okay, you're going to get into a fight and you're going to need to be prepared. Now this is the way we came from. Now, if you can notice right here, when I walked over here and I looked down, there you can see, there's our guy. So just like we predicted, that is the exact enemy that we encountered in the forest. So here, the game has put us into this position where it's now going to teach us how to fight this enemy. So, we know we have to use our spell. And... yeah. Oh, excuse me. So, let's give it a go. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run over here, and I'm going to make it a point to reinforce that we cannot fight this enemy head on. So I'm going to walk away, shoot, and it looks like we finally got some damage on it. But it looks like 3 blasts is not enough, so we're going to dodge a little bit, and he shoots out the little mini guys here. So we're able to build up soul again. And defeat it. Alright. So it looks like these things will take 4 blasts to kill. Excuse me. And it looks like they also give us an item here. Let's see. Soul Catcher. So that's another badge, but you take a look at it. Soul Catcher. Used by shamans to draw more soul from the world around them. Increases the amount of soul gained when striking an enemy with a nail. So here, think about what this does for us. The game has taught us at the very beginning that soul will be used to heal when we focus it. The game has also now given us a spell that uses soul. So the game is telling us right now that we're going to end up using a lot of soul. So what does it do? But after we complete the tutorial area for the Vengeful Spirit spell, it gives us a charm that helps us build up more soul when we're attacking enemies. So this is a way of allowing us to build up more soul more frequently, and then be able to heal and shoot the spell more often, which I think is really clever design, because of how it's set up. They teach you how to focus, they teach you how to use the spell, and then it's like, okay, if you want to, as a new player, maybe you'll be enticed to use these spells more often. Here's a charm that will give you more soul more often, and then you can use that thing more often. I honestly, I think that that's very good design, and I think that that's a great way to lead people into items, and sort of imply, hey, if you want to use that spell more, use this, without actually ever saying anything. So, break through this, and look at where we are. We're back at the beginning. So, we beat the creature. Will he let us out? Oh, so it's done then. You've slain the beast. The poor thing, it must have been terrified of you. It used to be quite docile, but the rancid air in these caverns filled it with some ancient rage. Still, you did what had to be done. You have my gratitude. Of course, we both know you wouldn't have made it through without that spell of mine. Oh ho ho. And look, the gate between us is opened. Oh ho ho. I'm sure you're eager to move on. Farewell, and have faith. Whatever you are seeking, it will find you. Oh ho ho. Why do you hesitate? You'll get nothing more from me, I'm afraid, though I do admire your persistence. Okay, so, let's think about that. So, we're given a little piece of information that gives us some context about the area. So he says that the creature that we just fought was once docile, meaning it was peaceful, it didn't like bothering anybody. But the rancid air made it quite violent. And if you remember, the elder bug talked about how Hollow Nest and the Forgotten Crossroads was filled with almost like a sickness in the air. So what we can tell is that the enemies we've been fighting thus far have been maybe infected by this sickness in the air, and that is what's causing them to attack us. Before we just had an understanding that this is a sick, dangerous area. We didn't know that, those enemies we've been fighting thus far were, infected with anything. They could have just been, aggressive enemies that live down here under. Now we sort of get an idea that there's this sickness and it's infecting enemies. It's infecting, characters and bugs, and they're turning them from what might normally be docile into these empty husks that attack, almost like a zombie infection in, like, popular media. I also want to draw attention to the fact that he says that whatever we're looking for will find us. And I find that to be quite weird. I find that I'll say I find it a little bit weird because the first thing when we're talking to him, he says is that that we've come down here in search of something. And then after we complete the thing, he says whatever we're looking for will find us. And that's kind of like the opposite of what a Metroidvania is. A Metroidvania is about, like, exploring and finding things and progressing, collecting items, etc. And he's saying that whatever our goal is, whatever we're trying to do, it's going to find us instead. And I find that to be a little weird, and a little ominous. So I think that from a mechanical standpoint, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense as a Metroidvania for something to be seeking us out if we're looking for it. That's kind of the opposite of what a Metroidvania is. So rather than having it from a mechanical standpoint, I think it's coming from a story standpoint of saying that whatever we're here to do, it's going to come after us. And I think that that's a very important distinction, because if the things that we need are going to come and find us, then that's not really what a Metroidvania is. And then finally, the game is just beating a dead horse by saying that, okay, you got the spell for me, there's nothing else for you here, I can't help you anymore, take a hike. And, to be fair, that's kind of what I want to do. I want to get out of here. He creeps me out. So I'm going to rest to save and build up some health. And what we want to do is we want to get out of here. So, let's move on. Get out of the temple. And I believe that down here is a switch. We progress through. And hey, look, we're back where Cornifer was. Sorry I missed you. If you're feeling lost, why not pop up? I think we talked about how you can come and find maps later. So, now that we have this, now that we have our spell, the obvious choice for us to go, the obvious place for us to go is to go fight our lovely friends, whatever that is, the big roly-poly. I'm going to use some of these enemies here to build up soul, so that way we have it for when we fight him. So let's see, where is the entrance? Ah yes, I believe with all the flowers and stuff here, this is it. And then this still counts as the area. And there he is. So just like before, it takes 4 of those blasts. And now we're finally able to progress to the next area outside of the Forgotten Crossroads. So, right away we notice that we have encountered a new type of obstacle. And how do we know that it's an obstacle? Well, so just to show you, took damage. So let's think about the visual indicators as to why this is an obstacle. So the first thing is that it's bubbling, and bubbling tends to indicate signs of like heat. On top of that, it's also steaming. So there are a couple of different media, what do I want to call it? There's a couple of different types of liquid like that we see in games. This could be extremely hot water. Like, this could be like boiling water and our body can't take the temperature. This could be acid. And, of course, everybody knows acid, extremely deadly chemical, burns the skin, though I'm not sure our friend here has skin, but, you know, can do deadly damage to the body. There's also the idea of it could be like poison, like this could be like a poisonous swampish type area. There's a couple of different ways we can interpret it, but the point is liquid bad. Hot, steaming liquid bad. So we can start to progress. And already we can start to notice the changes in the environment here, where we're starting to see the conversion from the stony, rocky caverns into like sort of like a lush, living, organic environment. Whoops, didn't mean to miss that platform. Because you can see that we're slowly getting more and more flora start to appear. Like, see this? How we just went from here to here? This entire thing is just brush. So, we can continue here, and we can see that we have unlocked the next area, and this is called Greenpath. And I think that the name is kind of self-explanatory. It's green. You know, it's full of lush. You know, lush green flowers, bushes. There still appears to be acid along the floor. There, if you notice there, those were non-hostile birds, so there's even just life in this area. So the caverns were filled with kind of like this sickness, but here we're starting to see more of like life. Oh, and here's a little enemy. Look, even the environment is an enemy. It's a bug that's disguising itself into the environment using the brush. And I think that this is a very, you know, nice segue from one area to another where we can still kind of see, you know, bits and pieces of the cavern slowly turn into like into actual like this looks more like a stone pathway, like somebody built this. This isn't the rocky caverns. This is like a stone pathway, an archway. And it's overrun by nature. So we can tell that just thematically we're in an entirely different place. We didn't need, you know, the name of Greenpath to pop up in big fancy letters to know that our whole environment has changed. So I want to talk real quickly now that we're seeing this about this enemy right here. Oh! So that enemy is letting off like this orange gas, and that is reminiscent of some of the attacks that we've seen from other enemies in the caverns. So the caverns may be filled with a sickly air, but it looks like it's kind of spread to this area too. Maybe not to the same degree, however, because before the caverns, it was almost like a sickness in the air, and it was filled in the caverns. Here, the area isn't filled with sickness, I would say. It's more just like there's sickness growing in, like, along the environment, and I think that that's a sort of a stark contrast to make. You can see here more peaceful birds that are just there and not bothering us. So it looks like we have two different enemies, and like that one, this, if I remember correctly, not only does it explode like that, if you defeat it, it explodes too. Which is kind of scary. I don't want to get caught in a blast like that. So we can progress a little more, we can see what's around here. Yeah, just a lot. It's not enough to just say that this is a different area. It's a completely different thematic. The caverns were pretty much devoid of anything that was lifelike. I mean, there were enemies around, but they were just like infected, like, zombie people in, like, a dark cave. Here we have, like, nature that's being infected, nature that's being overrun, and it's kind of like... It's kind of weird to have this sort of theme of having nature overrun an area, but the infection is trying to overrun it as well. So it's like you have an area that's being overrun by both like a natural cycle of nature and this unnatural sickness at the same time. And it makes you wonder why almost like the flora doesn't appear infected. The flora is perfectly fine. You know, the plants aren't breathing sickness right now. It's just the bug type enemies that we're finding. Some more birds scattering. And what do we have here but a bench? So we actually have the opportunity to save a little bit. I mean, like, look at this background right here. There is waterfalls of flowing water. I don't know if that is like fresh water or if that is more of like the acidic water that we've been seeing, but this whole area is just filled with life. And for an empty world that Hollow Nest is trying to portray to us, this empty world, it's not empty because there's a lack of life. There's plenty of life, it looks like. There's plenty of flora. It just looks like it's the bugs who lived here who have suffered. We don't see them unless they're infected, but life continues to grow regardless. And it makes you wonder, when we've talked about over and over again, that this game, that Hollow Nest itself is an ancient kingdom lost by time. So it almost makes you wonder, like, it really must have been a long time, because you can't grow a forest like this over in a kingdom in 100 years, 200 years. It would take maybe thousands of years almost. I'm not, an expert on biology or anything, but surely, even it would definitely take a long time to become this overrun with brush. Because this is civilization. The cavern was just rocks. This is civilization. These are pillars. These are, brick or like concrete roads. There was, civilization built here. So to see it so overrun shows you just like how much of like the thematic is here. We're not in it, like we're not even like in necessarily a forest. It looks like we're in a civilization overrun by forest. Like imagine if like New York City was just completely turned into like brush. Turned into like a forest. I can only imagine that it might look something, like this almost. I don't actually know where I'm going. We're just taking in what we can see here. I might have gone backwards, to be honest. Yeah, I went completely backwards. Yeah, so you can see, even right there, you can see how, like, before with the caverns, at least the caverns had like pathways and stuff like that. Here, the forest is just like, oh yeah, the forest, like you can go everywhere. You can end up walking around in circles. Let's see. The game had us enter this area going left. So logically, what I should do is I should go left. So I'll stick to going to left for now. I think I fell in that exact same pit not a moment before. Yeah, and then I went up here and there was that bench. Okay. So let's resave here. And then only go left, because I don't want to get turned around again. Oh! You can see the game is trying to hide things here, too. They just give barely enough room to see that there are geos here. So the game, both with its enemies and with its resources, is not afraid to say, hey, take a close look at your environment now, because now we're going to start hiding things. Notice how there's like a lot of like darkness hidden in these in the brush. Like you see like all this area where it's just black and dark. And whoa! Oh, hello there. Let's... Hey, come back! No, I was going to talk about you. I should have paused. So that was a very interesting encounter. We just happened to see an enemy who looked... Maybe an NPC, an enemy? I'm not sure what that would be, but they looked just like us, right? So they had the white mask-like face, the white bug-like face with the black holes for eyes, and then covered in some sort of like cloak with a weapon. And their behavior towards us is that they stared at us and then they ran away from us. So clearly, they may not be hostile, but they clearly are not friendly. Because if it was a friendly NPC, think about all the NPCs we've encountered thus far. They were standing still, they weren't moving. They were willing to talk to us. Here we just had a NPC, enemy, whatever you want to call it, look at us and then just run. So does that mean... So the game doesn't... Both with the knight and with that enemy we just... that encounter we just saw, there's no facial expressions necessarily, so it's hard to say if it was... She was... The NPC was like he was surprised by our presence and ran? Were they scared? Are they watching us from a distance and they're just trying to keep that distance? The game does a good way of keeping that character with a sense of mystery. Both with its physical appearance, because what immediately draws your attention is that the character looks just like us, and then they run away. So, the game has just given you a mini objective now. And that mini objective is to follow that thing that looks just like us. The game has not been afraid to throw us into traps before. So, is it a trap? Is it a scared NPC? Is it somebody watching us? The game does a good job of drawing in that mystery with that short encounter and that visual appearance, and has given us an objective without saying anything. And I think that's evidence of really good game design, because it's like there's no neon glowing lights and arrows saying go there, follow them. Just all of the context and clues that we're given automatically tell us we should be following that person. And follow that person we shall in the next one of our videos. Because I think that we are at a stopping point for today. So just as a refresher, we collected a new item that allowed us to progress. We have entered into a new area that does a good job of transitioning us between two different environments, one from a stony cavern to one of like a lush nature environment, and it very quickly envelops us in the area and then provides us a new mini objective in following a new character. So, of course, there will be an assignment posted alongside this video. Hope that you enjoyed, and I look forward to bringing more discussion to you guys with this game. All right, enjoy.